In this nugget, we take a look at Windows Store apps. We start off with an overview of what they are and how they differ a little from those traditional desktop applications. We also take a look at side-loading apps, which are kind of unauthorized or renegade applications that you might want to install on your own apart from the Windows Store. We take a look at troubleshooting as well because even though these apps usually work pretty well, sometimes you might run into occasional problems, and we'll take a look at some steps you can do to make sure that they perform properly. All right, with Windows Store applications, they're going to be a little different than the desktop applications that you might have been accustomed to in the past, such as Microsoft Office or WinZip or Adobe Reader, any of those other kinds of apps that you normally download or install from a DVD. Here, we have to have an internet connection just to get started, because what happens is they directly download from the Windows Store. You can't buy a CD or a DVD or even download the app as a standalone item. So as you can see here, there's none of this kind of stuff that we've had in the past. Also, all of these apps are designed to be full-screen apps, and kind of the same kind of an immersive experience with these apps that you would get, of course, with Microsoft's competitor, the iPad. So a lot of their applications run that same way. They kind of fill the whole screen. And that's how these apps are going to be as well. You can get them for 32-bit, 64-bit, or ARM machines. Again, ARM being things such as the Surface, which again is Microsoft's answer to the iPad. Now, if you install an app here, let's say on a 32-bit version of Windows 8, and then you log on using a same account, for example, your same Windows Live ID, on a 64-bit machine elsewhere, the app that you did install on 32-bit will install automatically on your 64-bit. It'll just be, if necessary, a 64-bit version. And then once again, it will also install on your Surface or whatever ARM device you have, if you've got one of those as well. So you install it in one place, and it will then propagate to all of your other devices up to a certain point. Now, I haven't really seen any examples per se yet, but certainly these applications do have the ability to interoperate with one another. A good example of that might be maybe you have one application that works with pictures. I'll say Pics here, P-I-C-S. And then you might have another application that is for photo albums. Okay, so the photo albums app could pull from your Pics and use that to be able to create or build your albums. Okay, so that's kind of an example of what this could be like. They also do take advantage of live tiles. Most of them will have some kind of data that can be live updated. For example, if you have some kind of a social media tile or social media Windows Store app, it might show you what other friends you have that are online. It might show you any updates to news that you have, any new product releases, that sort of thing. And then also, it's going to be navigable shopping. Now, when I say that, all I mean there is when you go to the Windows Store to look for the apps that you want, there's a couple of different ways of doing this. You can go through all the various categories. They have entertainment categories, productivity, all these sorts of things. And we'll see some of those as we look at the demonstration here coming up. And then you'll see tiles for each one of those types. And then you can go through the categories. And then you can also just search for something, which very often is much, much faster if you have something specific in mind. When you install the app, all you have to do if you're on an ARM device is just tap it with your finger, and it will install. There's really nothing else to it. There's no wizards. Likewise, if you're on a mouse-controlled machine, you just click on it. It does the same thing. It just installs in the background. Most of the apps are really fairly small compared to the full desktop apps like Microsoft Office or something else that might take a gigabyte of storage space. These are relatively small and simple. The same app can be installed on up to 5 devices. Remember this discussion up here I was talking about earlier, where if you install it on one, it will then propagate to all of your other devices where you sign in with the same account. Well, that is true up to 5 devices. When you get to your 6th device, it will tell you, oops, you've already got this installed too many places. You're going to have to uninstall it from one of your other devices. This will be true of both free and paid applications that you download. As far as updates are concerned, this is kind of handy. It will check daily for any updates to your applications. And it's very simple to perform those updates. They always are performed manually. There's no group policy object or anything like that, even on a corporate level, to forcibly install any updates automatically. You can use a GPO to download the updates, but in terms of actually installing the updates to a Windows Store application, the user themselves must do that. This is also an update that's independent of Windows Update. Windows Update's what we get for the operating system itself for security fixes, patches, service packs, all of that sort of thing. These types of updates are not in that same stream of updates. If you don't want to have Windows Store applications, this is really a bit of a concern for a lot of corporations because they may not trust or want to have users installing these apps just at will from the Windows Store, especially if corporate hasn't tested them. They don't know what it's going to do. They don't know if it's going to require, say, additional firewall ports to be open. All kinds of complications like this. You can disable the ability to use the Windows Store applications with either a local or a domain group policy object. What happens here is that once the group policy object is enabled, and I'll show you that here as well shortly, then the user will no longer be able to download the App Store. It'll just say it's not available. Also, there's another policy that you can use to automatically download any updates. That's part of this discussion right up here. Any updates to your apps, but not install the update. That, again, has to be a manual process on the user's part. Also, you can specifically control individual apps, Windows Store applications, with a utility called App Locker that just bleeds outside of our scope of topics just a little bit. But App Locker is something that we normally use in corporations to control the apps. So, for example, on a desktop app, we could use it so that we would say we don't want anyone playing Windows games. You could use App Locker to lock that sort of thing down. Or in this case, you could use it to lock down some Windows Store applications. Maybe you only want to allow kind of a whitelist of applications. There's 5 pre-approved corporate Windows Store applications, and you can use App Locker to allow users to only get those apps. Now, let's just go ahead and quickly address how we could turn that off. Remember I mentioned that you can turn off the ability to use the Windows Store. You can do so under User Configuration or Computer Configuration. By the way, the Microsoft documentation that I've read only shows User Configuration, but that's not the half of it, literally, because you can also do this by computer if you want as well. Also, I'm using the local group policy editor here. This is what we would do if we wanted to lock down just an individual machine, but again, of course, we'll use group policy objects in a domain environment if we want to do it in a wider scale. But so here, if I wanted to lock it down for this individual computer, I'd go to Administrative Templates, then I'd go to Windows Components, and then there's Store down here, and you can see, turn off the Store application. Very simply disables it. There's really not much else to it. So if I were to enable this policy, let me double click it, there we go, and choose Enable, and click OK, from that point forward, no longer would we be able to use the Windows Store after the policy does refresh. There's also, under Computer Configuration, the same exact location under Windows Components, and then Store. I think there's a couple of other settings here, too, on the computer side, sure enough. But here we can, again, turn off the Store application. You can also turn off automatic download of updates if you want to. And you can also allow Store to install apps on Windows To Go workspaces. And these are, again, the Windows To Go workspaces are simply what we do when we put an entire operating system on something like a USB thumb drive or an external hard drive. It kind of allows us to use our corporate desktop no matter where we are. That's what that's about. So anyway, that's the basic idea here, though, is we need to know about this, and that's exam worthy. And remember, it's under User and Computer Configuration, and it's to turn off the Store application. All right, so how do we get these Windows apps? Well, we simply go to the Start and Start screen here, and then I'm going to go to the Store button right here. Once we've gone into this, we then see, some spotlighted apps. I don't know how they get there. They probably pay money to Microsoft to be on the front page of this, for example. So we could install the Staples app if we want to. We could go to various types of entertainment here, or games if we wanted to. Ooh, they're Microsoft Solitaire, and it's free. Man, that's worth the whole price of admission right there. I got to install that one. Can't do without Solitaire. So notice that that's going to now install in the background, and we don't really have to do much else with that one. See if there's anything else interesting here. How about, I don't even know what the Wonderwall is, but here's a diddly thing. You guys have seen me do enough drawing already, so you probably don't want me to do much more drawing. But anyway, I'll just go ahead and do this. I'll install that one as well, okay? So I'm not really quite sure what all I installed here, but you get the idea here. The other thing I could do is, if I'm not really quite sure, I could just start typing, and I'm going to say Photos. Okay, in the Windows Store, and there's a Photography Explorer. That might be interesting. So I'm going to click on that one. Looks like we have Travel Photography. That looks kind of interesting. Or Photography Explorer. Don't really know what that is. I'll just go ahead and click it. See, See how easy it is for your users to just start installing stuff? It's a little bit scary. So I'm going to go ahead and install this thing here as well. And you can see here why we would want to possibly back some of this stuff off and not allow our users to always install stuff. So here I go back to my desktop. I'm getting notifications. It's actually on my second monitor, which is outside of my recording view. But it pops open a little tile, even when I have the normal desktop showing, that notifies me that these apps have installed. So let's see if we can get to any of these. Here's Staples. Actually, I did install that one earlier at a previous point in time. And then here's the Microsoft Solitaire collection. So I can drag that over here if I want to and keep dragging it over and putting it where it's going to be most productive, right on the front page of this. Okay. Now, notice again, it is a fully immersive screen. It does fill up the entire thing. There's no minimize, maximize, close buttons. You're locked into whatever this is, unless you go up to the corner and close it. And then having gotten a game started here, I kind of skipped ahead here a little bit. We see that I've got Tri-Peak Solitaire going on, and I can kind of play this back and forth if I like. Just kind of, that should go there, and that should go there, and so on. So you get the idea. You just start playing the game or whatever it is. Again, no close button, anything like that. If I wanted to switch back and forth to other things, I could go up here again to the upper left. Notice that if I click and hold that, then it will take me to whatever else appears in the little thumbnail up there. Again, by moving down a little bit, it can expose the other items that are available right down through here, and I can go back, for example, to Solitaire, or right-click on it and close it. So that gives us an idea of where the Microsoft apps are coming from. The Windows Store applications, you see they're very easy to install and also very easy to control if you want to use that using a group policy. Next, let's talk about something called side loading. You see, when we took a look at the Windows Store apps, those were ones that are available only through the App Store. You can't really get any other types of apps unless you're doing some kind of side loading. This is where we're going to have a non-Windows Store line of business application. This might be, for example, a Salesforce that issues Surface tablets to all of their salespeople that are out in the field. And maybe they have an app on there that is for making estimates, or maybe it's for insurance adjusters that could determine, use a little app there to determine the cost of this broken bumper or something like that. So this is just a couple of examples. There's all different ways you could go with this, but you would have to develop this in-house or hire somebody to develop a custom app file for you. What you would do is you'd also have to enable this in a group policy object. Let me show you where you would go. You'll go here under computer configuration. Again, it can be local or in a domain, but computer configuration, administrative templates, Windows components, and then app package deployment. You know what? Hey, this reminds me of something I should also tell you. I don't think it's part of the material or possibly part of the exam or not, but Windows RT, in other words, the tablet devices, they are not subject to a domain group policy object. Why? Because you cannot join them to a domain. For them, you will have to use a local computer policy like we're showing you here. Anyway, so you go to App Package Deployment, and then you choose Allow All Trusted Apps to Install, and you enable this. And once you've clicked OK, then you can go ahead and start to install and enable your side-loaded line of business applications. And what I'm going to show you here how to do is to add them and to remove them in particular. But you can also use these utilities to list any installed apps that you have. For using Photoshop, PowerShell, if you want to use PowerShell, you'll choose the Add AppX Package command, okay, commandlet. This would be useful if you had a single use. So I know that I want to install one of these apps only on this one surface, okay, on this one tablet. Then I could use that PowerShell commandlet just right there if I wanted to. I've also, let me go to it. I've also put all of these commands in a PowerShell window here so that you can see them a little bit better. They're kind of hard to read all of my writing, and there's quite a lot involved there. So the first one we looked at is just the top one. Add AppX package, and then you would enter in -path, and then wherever the path is to your AppX application. These Windows Store applications, as well as any customized line of business ones that you create on your own, have an extension of .appx. So that's where that comes from. Let's take a look at another thing we could do. How about for Windows imaging? This is very useful if you use staged deployments where you have Windows images. Remember, this is where, in quick review, you might have a Windows 8 machine here. And it's perfect. It's got everything exactly configured the way you want it. In fact, it's such a wonderful golden machine that it's even got a little halo over the top of it, just beaming light out of it. Okay, so once we get our perfect machine going there, what we want to do is take a picture, so to speak, of the hard drive, and we want to copy that to an image of some type. Okay, once we take that image and it's now the entire operating system and the entire computer is really stored in a single image file, then we want to copy that over to something like either a Windows 8, actually a Windows Server 2012 or a Windows Server 2008 server, and we might have Windows Deployment Services there. By the way, the actual file format of these would be .wim. So it might be myperfectcomputer.wim or something like that. Once it's been copied over here to our WDS server or some other solution, then we can then deploy it out to multiple other computers as we like. Okay, so what we would do here is in a Windows image kind of a deployment on our golden machine here, before we snapped an image of it, we would run something like DISM, and these are just options. You can use either one of these; they both work. DISM or a PowerShell commandlet. Add appx provisioned package. Wow, they come up with the longest PowerShell commandlets. Anyway, those two commands I've also typed in up here so that it's, again, just a little bit easier to read than my handwriting there. And using DISM, or the Image Servicing Management tool, we could do that here as well. And then we would just type, oops, why did I do that? Seem to have lost everything. Let me get it back. Sorry, folks. A little jittery here. We would do DISM /online, add provisioned appx package, and then a package path to wherever it is, wherever your appx file is located. And then you would choose skip license, because it's not a Windows license that we're looking for here. Not any kind of the traditional licenses that we would normally use for appx's out of the Windows Store. We're just using our own methods here. So those are a couple of other methods that we could use. Oh, and I forgot the second one. Let me go back to that. The second one would be this one right here. Oh my gosh. Come on, James. Zoom it in right. There we go. Where it says add appx provisioned package. The third line here where I've typed in. Add appx provisioned package online folder path. And then you point it to the folder path where the app is located. And I just typed in arbitrarily appx, but you get the idea there. Okay. Then what we do is I also want to point out the apps that you use here, the side-loaded apps that you've created or that you've had a developer create for you, they have to be signed, okay, with a trusted certification authority. So the client that's trying to install this line of business app, when they see that signature, they have to be able to trace it back to a trusted certification authority. Otherwise, the app will not install. Now then, to remove a side-loaded app, it's really not too hard here either. Again, if I'm just got a single user installation, I can use PowerShell, and I'll just use remove appx package and then the name of the package, not the file path or anything like that, just the actual name of the package. And you can see here how I would do that here, where it says remove appx package and then my app, that line right there. That's the kind of thing I would do there to get rid of an app. The other thing I could do is if I have it in an image, then I can remove and prevent reinstallation for a Windows image by using, again, PowerShell. And I would use remove appx provisioned package online, and then the package name, and then, or rather hyphen package name, and then the actual name here at the end. Once again, let me zoom in on this command as well. It's kind of long. Hopefully we can fit it all on the screen here. There we go. And we can see it right here. Remove appx provisioned package online, and then so on. Okay. And again, you can just pause the screen if you want to make note of these as well. I think I'm guessing that for exam purposes, the main thing you'll need to know about is not necessarily all of the switches and everything, but I would know the name of the PowerShell commandlet. So, for example, in this case, just the remove appx provisioned package. If you know that for packages that have been installed in images, then I would be aware of that image. Okay, then there's DISM, and then you can use online remove, and then provisioned appx package, / package name, : and then again, the actual name of the package. That's our last one here. We'll just go ahead and take a quick peek at that one. And hopefully I can get to it. There we go. Okay, and you can see the last item there. That's just an example. And again, you'll just type in whatever the name of your own package is. Now, when it comes to troubleshooting, you're really going to have probably pretty good results with these AppX applications working fine anyway. And the reason why I say that is because AppX is relatively simple and small compared to desktop applications. A lot of your desktop apps are on DVD and they're hundreds of megabytes before the files are even expanded. Sometimes they're over a gigabyte. So they're very, very big, complex programs a lot of times for traditional desktop applications. These AppX applications, they might be a megabyte or 2 megabytes. So they're very, very simple in that regard. So you're probably not going to have as many problems, but one thing I would do if you have any issues, such as when you click on it, nothing happens, or you get an error message, just update the app. A lot of times the vendor will have a fix already there. If you just update it, you fix the problem. Also, synchronize the licenses. The licenses. Oh, we don't want licenses, do we? Okay. Licenses. Synchronize those. And when I say that synchronize the license, I'll demonstrate that for you here in a little while, but it's part of the Windows Store. You'll go there and then you'll go into settings, and there's an option there to synchronize your licenses. Also, just consider reinstalling. That's also something we have to know about for exam purposes anyway. And when we talk about reinstalling, what we really mean there is to not only install the app in the first place, but to reinstall it, which means you basically just uninstall the application and then reinstall it. There's really nothing else to it in terms of that. Also, you could contact the AppX publisher. There might be a notification on their website that there's a known issue with a certain part of the application or something, or they might notify you that there's going to be an update coming out soon or something like that. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what we can show you here in terms of the troubleshooting this. All right, let's talk here about updating our apps. Notice that when we go to the store down here, it says 15 right there. What does that mean? That means there's 15 updates that are actually available right now. So if I click on this, I can see updates up at the top, 15, and there they all are. These are all the default apps that came with Windows 8, and apparently there's a lot of them that need to be updated. If I click install right now, they'll all install. I can also clear them and say I really only want to update this one, and then I'll just install that one. You can also view the details if you want to know what this update does, and it'll give you a little bit of information about that. Okay, so I'm just going to choose that one. I don't really even know what it does, but I'll just click install just to show you that there's not much to it. You can see that it's installing here then in the background. Now once I get out of this, let me also show you that here I am still in the store. If I need to synchronize my app licenses, in other words, something's gone out of sync with my licenses here on this PC, I can go over here to the right, and you know this is where we get our charms over on the right. I'll go to settings, and these are going to be different with the store open. They're going to be different settings than I would get if I was just at a normal desktop or on the start screen. So from here, now I can go to app updates. Notice that I can choose whether or not to automatically download updates for my apps. All of those ones that I just showed you, the 15 updates, those have already been downloaded already in the background because this was set to yes. However, they haven't been installed yet. So by going to that screen and installing them, that's what was going on there. But now I can sync the licenses. And that should help to make sure that I've got up-to-date information on all the apps that I have. It's really not much to this one either. You just click sync licenses, and it just tells me now that my licenses are up to date. How about reinstalling something? Here, let's go to this Staples item, for example. Oh, I didn't mean to actually go to that. Let me back up a little bit. So if I go back here to my my Staples app that I installed up here, what if I'm having troubles with that? Well, if I've tried other things like synchronizing and other methods that were updating, and it doesn't seem to help anything, I can right-click on this item, and then I can just choose to uninstall it. Okay, so I'm going to uninstall that item, and that's pretty much all there is to it. Once that's been done, I can go back to the store. It's really very simple. Now I'll click on Staples again. Now I'm going to install it. Hopefully, by simply installing the application after I'd had problems with it previously, we should now get back to a known working Staples app. That was easy. Oh, and isn't that cute? I open up the the Windows Store application, and the first thing it wants to do is to sell me Apple products here. Okay, so that's the basic idea for how all of that works. In this nugget, we took a look at Windows Store apps, starting with an overview. Remember, they're really not like your traditional desktop apps. They're smaller, they're also going to be simpler, and they're only downloadable normally from the Windows Store, unless you use side-loading apps, which are how you can install custom or homegrown applications. Sometimes your apps may not work quite as expected. Maybe there's some corruption or something like that in the application. I show you some troubleshooting tips that you can use to uninstall and reinstall, sync your licenses, that sort of thing to get those apps back in order. Well, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.